Nothing is more important to our future as a country than the improvement of our education system. Education, education, education.
Okay, so we know for a fact that rich people are much more likely to succeed than poor people. And in fact, what we know from macroeconomic studies is that school doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter how well you do in school. If your parents are rich, you'll be successful in life. If your parents are poor, you will not be successful in life, okay? So what's the difference? Okay, so now let's look at parenting strategies between rich and poor. Okay? So there are lots of differences, but let's focus on 3 major differences. The first major difference is that rich parents speak to their kids more than poor parents. Okay? High vocabulary, low vocabulary. When rich parents speak to the kids, rich parents will use higher vocabulary, longer sentences. Poor parents will just be no, yes, go away. Okay? Another major difference is in attitude. Okay? So rich parents use a friendly attitude and poor parents use an authoritarian or command attitude. So for example, if you are a rich kid and you go and touch a stove, okay, and you burn your hand, the rich parent will say, listen, you made a mistake, don't worry about it. Let me explain to you why touching a fire is bad for you. Because you'll burn yourself and you might have to go to a doctor and we will feel pain if you hurt yourself, okay? So the rich parent will spend a lot of time explaining to the child why this is wrong and how not to do it again. The poor parent is like, don't you ever do that again or I'll beat the crap out of you, okay? Don't do that. Pretty simple, okay? But as you can understand, the rich kid will understand that the world is safe and that he is respected in this world. Okay? Whereas the poor child will think that the world is scary and he or she must be afraid of adults. And this carries on into school, right? Because as a rich kid, you go into school and you think that, oh, my teacher is my friend. So you smile at the teacher and you hug the teacher and the teacher smiles back and now you're friends, right? But if you're a poor kid and you see the teacher, you're afraid to look at the teacher. You don't smile. You are stressed, okay? And the teacher thinks that you might be a problem child. So the problem with this is that, yes, being an authoritarian parent, it is effective, but it creates stress in the family. Okay? It makes the child feel unsafe. And this leads to the third major difference between rich parents and poor parents. Rich parents offer stability. Okay? Poor parents can only offer volatility. This is a very simple idea. Rich parents have money so they can afford to keep promises. So I'm a rich parent, I say to my child, okay, next week we'll go to Thailand for vacation. Guess what? Next week you guys go to Thailand for vacation. But if you're a poor parent, money is always an issue. So it's hard for you to keep promises, right? So it's like, next week we'll go to McDonald's for lunch, but your paycheck is not enough, so you're like, sorry, we can't go anymore. Okay? And now, because of these different parenting styles, we understand why rich kids behave different from poor kids, right? So let's look at the idea of self-control, right? Self-control. What is the marshmallow test? Marshmallow test is not a test of self-control, it's a test of your trust in others, right? If you believe that the teacher who goes outside, if you believe that he or she comes back and will keep his or her promise, then you will not eat that marshmallow. But if you think that this teacher is lying to me, then you're not going to eat that marshmallow. Then you will eat that marshmallow, right? So it's not really about self-control. It's about your belief and trust in authority figures, right? So if you're rich, stability, you have stability. But if you're poor, you don't have stability. So you're actually better off eating that marshmallow rather than waiting for that second marshmallow. Because guess what? Most of the time, you will not get that second marshmallow. Okay, do you understand? So it's not that poor kids are stupid. Poor kids are rational, and they're responding to the circumstances that they live in. Okay? And resilience, right? Well, the idea of resilience is that you believe that the world will help you. Right? So if you're rich and you believe that everyone helps you, you can be resilient. Because if you fail, someone will help you get up. If you're poor, if you fail, that probably tells you you should be doing this. Okay? You probably won't succeed doing this. So you don't have much confidence in others. Okay? And the idea of self-assessment, right? Looking inward. Well, if you're a poor child who lives under a lot of stress, it's hard for you to be self-reflective. Because if you look back at yourself, all you can think about is your pain and your stress. Okay? So from these different parenting strategies, we can now explain why different students behave the way they do. This, of course, may lead you to think, okay, well then, rather than construct our schools around self-control, resilience, and self-reflection, we should construct our schools around better parenting skills, okay? Which means that, hey, let's construct schools where kids are exposed to a lot of vocabulary, where teachers are friendly, and where there's a lot of stability, okay? And we've tried this, and it's more effective, but it doesn't really work either. Why? Because the kids come in too late. A lot of their worldview is already established. Then you're like, okay, well then let's change how parents behave. And when you do that, what you recognize is that, nope, you can't change how they behave either. Okay? So no matter what you do, you end up with massive differences between the poor and the rich. The rich stay rich, and the poor stay poor.